Hello teachers. Well, you're moving along and here you are in week 4 of your 6-week classroom management class. Now this week you're going to develop your procedures for daily instruction. In other words, how do you greet students upon arrival to class? How do you open a lesson and transition from topics or classes during the school day? How do you assign and collect student work? Do you use rubrics? What is your grading policy? And of course, how do you communicate all of these policies to both students and parents? Now, these are an especially important part of your classroom management plan. These are all things that occur during the school day. And the reason for a procedure is to develop consistency, and consistency is what helps to develop trust and security with students. Now, the textbook is especially good and offers guidelines and suggestions for this part of your classroom management plan. So make sure you read this before you submit the assignment for this week. Now, in addition to your procedures for daily instruction, you are also to discuss your procedures for working with special needs students. Now, I realize that many of you are not special ed teachers, but all teachers must know and be aware of any IEP or 504 plan that a student may have. Now, as a teacher, you are required by law to know and follow any IEP and 504 plans, as well as to be a part of developing the plan. And if you fail to follow the IEP or the 504 plan, you could be open to a federal or state lawsuit. Now, I highly recommend that you study this portion of the text. The other thing is to consider is how do you store the IEP or 504 plans so it's in a secure location. However, some of you are SPED teachers, and this is where you list all the procedures you carry out as a SPED co-teacher. What are your procedures for setting up IEP meetings? What do you do during your IEP meetings, and what is your follow-up? Now, these are all things to consider for this next section of your classroom management plan. Now remember, all weekly assignments will be collected and then submitted again at the end of the class for your final artifact. And you still have time to go back and make any adjustments. So now look for an email from me for our next virtual class for week 5. And email me if you have any questions. Now here's a recap. For week 4, there are 2 tasks, and this is task 1. Develop your policy and list your procedures for your daily instruction. And below are some things that you may consider, but it is not an exhaustive list. Okay, how you greet and dismiss students from your classroom. How do you open a lesson and transition from topics or classes during the school day? How you assign and collect student work. How do you distribute and collect materials? How do you use rubrics? What is your grading policy? Your acceptance of or not of late work, and how you communicate with students and parents. Now, this week also has a second task, and this second task is develop your policy and list your procedures for your daily instruction for delivery of instruction for your special needs students with IEPs or 504 plans. Now, each IEP and 504 plan will be different, but what needs to be listed are how you plan to work with your special needs students. Now below are just some of the things that you may consider, and this is not an exhaustive list. So when do you plan and work with your co-teacher? Where do you safeguard keeping copies of your IEP and or 504 plans? I keep mine under lock and key in my desk. What do you do differently to differentiate your lessons for your SPED students? Now I hope you have a good week. And remember to check out the textbook for some very concrete ideas. And remember, if you've got any questions, please feel free to email me through the week, and I will get back to you just as soon as I can. Hope you have a good week.